and gentlemen, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Episode 126 of the Subjective Perspective Show. You see already who's sitting before us, and I'm going to lower that background because I know that background can get a little loud when you're trying to hear your boy Nicky over here. You see, we have two guests in studio. These are gentlemen that I've been advertising for the last 2 weeks or so, but I've been talking about you both for episodes here and there. One episode I actually talked about, Ryan, I talked about you, about the book Siddhartha, because one of our guests said that his or her, I forget which guest it was, their favorite book was Siddhartha. I was like, well, I just loaned that to a friend of mine, and we'll talk about Siddhartha. So, but don't worry about reading Siddhartha, and you can hold on to it longer. But I want you to realize, everybody, you have two intellectuals with us. We have Matt Gutierrez and Ryan Sparks, and I know these gentlemen in a really cool way. So this is a video broadcast, and what I'm going to do is bring down the background sounds, and I'm going to keep the mics rocking. I'm going to lock this in. Gentlemen, while I get my mic set up, please say hello to the audience.
Hello.
Hi.
Short and simple.
We're working with one mic, ladies and gents, as you'll see for Ryan and for Matt. So they're going to be swinging the green mic around, and I'm trying to get my blue mic all locked in. So everybody that's listening right now, you can't see us, but you know that we're getting all of the logistics situated. And my boys, first off, thank you for being here. And it's time to rock and roll. I want to say, Ryan, I've known you, man, for like 6 months. And just know, guys, when we get into the mics, try to bring it as close as possible. As I'm listening in, I'm going to mess with my EQ on my side for a second just to make sure that's super popping. And Ryan, and feel free, like I said, guys, you can take this thing off, and this is just a little Velcro thing, boom, and you can just take it off and just pass it back and forth, but it'll catch it nice. It sounded great on the intro. So Ryan, I've known you, man, in a unique fashion. For everybody listening in, and I know I have a lot of students who may be listening in from the Silicon Valley area of California, and as I say that, I want to see if we have anybody linking in right now. Ryan was an intellectual that I got to work with this past semester at a college that I won't make the name of the college just yet, but I will say that it's probably one of the most important schools in the Central Coast of California. The oldest college, actually, one of the oldest colleges in the state of California. So do a little homework, everybody. And as I'm looking, we have a couple people linking in right now. So if you're in the Silicon Valley area, you know who you are. I just want to say thank you for tuning on in right now. And as time goes on, I'm going to bring this down, and I'll check that out in a little bit. I'll give some shout outs too if anybody gives some text. I already got a couple people might be texting in. I think one of the most important things as I sort of sit in front of this camera, gentlemen, so as I sort of get a little posture toward the camera, don't mind me.
You gotta look good for
I got looking for the camera now. It's not just radio. You guys have a perfect angle, and let me get some of my water. As you notice, we took the logos off the water. Just because you never want advertising infringement, even though as Miss Lisa, the other half of my life, the other half of me, the Subjective Perspective, Be Awoke Entertainment. Arguably, the name is from Miss Lisa, who brought this idea of, hey, man, it's about waking people up. Let's get with this program because those countries are not shit holes. The ones that I heard called shit holes. And I say that word so freely now where I would feel reticent to say that years past because you don't know how people would take it. But I'm hearing Anderson Cooper say it relentlessly. Don Lemon, everybody, to Shepard Smith or whoever will be out there on Fox. Lou Dobbs was saying that the other night. Let me take this a sip of my water here. And to put those big names out there, you know, you got to listen to both sides of the media, because somewhere in the middle is that truth. And that's the crazy part, guys. Ryan, we got to work with each other for a semester at a university in the Central Coast of California. Matt, we're going to get into our meeting, brother, and how we knew each other essentially virtually through Ryan, and how finally, after a couple months, we're able to sit across this table and get into the conversation I've been waiting to get into for the past couple months, because everybody listening in, you know, Ryan and Matt did a podcast for me. Ryan did it for a project that we were working on. And when I heard it, I said, wow, that's pretty crazy. You know, the crazy in the most respectful, beautiful way. And, you know, the content, the ideas, the flow, the cohesion of ideas, the fun. It made Lisa and I say, man, we need these guys, not only in the studio, but on the network with us. So, gentlemen, as you know, for months now, I've been talking to Ryan about it. We would love to get you guys on. And I won't say the name of the show that initially you had utilized, but feel free to talk about it on the air if you'd like in a bit. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 126 of the Subjective Perspective Show featuring Matt Gutierrez and Ryan Sparks. Well, I think it's apropos to start off with a song. Now that Ryan and Matt are getting on air a bit, and we're going to hear from them in a moment, but they're getting the vibe of what it is to be on air and in the studio with us in Santa Cruz, California. So I think we're going to play a song, guys. So the song I'm going to play is titled Give Me Love by a band called Vista Kicks. We just had them on a couple weeks ago. They're really good. And everybody listening in, you know, they're playing January 20th in San Francisco. We told Trevor from Vista Kicks we were going to be there. We're unfortunately not going to be able to be there because we have a studio show, a call-in on next Saturday. But anybody who has the ability to get to San Francisco, go to see Vista Kicks. If you get a picture at the show, we'll give you a free shirt, one of these bad boys, one of the other shirts that you've seen us wear on the network. Just know that we have a couple people. Danny out in New York, somewhere in Douglaston, New York, who won one of our Twitter contests. We have retweet contests. And Danny out there, in about a week and a half, we're going to be putting your shirt out, as we just talked about the other day. So it's an awesome way for us to connect with you all around the world. So please send us, you know, feedback of what you dig, because these gentlemen are about to blow your mind. My guys, let's get into Gimme Love, because I think more than ever we need that. Gimme Love. This is our friends Vista Kicks.
Love, give me something to believe in. Hug me and squeeze me and give me what I need. Your love, more than enough. So give me your love. Emmylou, you slept without a blanket. You tossed and you turned throughout the night. You and I are never gonna make it unless we learn to treat each other right. Love, give me something to believe in. Tell Your life is full of sorrow. You never let the smoke get in your eyes. Don't you know the best thing about tomorrow? No matter what, the sun is gonna rise. Never have to worry. I will always be right by your side. 'Cause I need love, give me something to believe in. Hug me and squeeze me and give me what I need. Your love, more than enough. Give me your love. What are we supposed to be doing here? What are we supposed to be doing here? What are we supposed to be? What are we supposed to be doing here? What are we supposed to be doing here? Love, give me something to believe in. Tell me you need me and never ever leave me. Girl, you want my heart, give me your love. Love, give me love. I want love, I need your love. More than enough, give me your love.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our friends Vista Kicks. Song's titled Gimme Love. I'm just going to get a little queued up with our next song and intermission in about a half hour or so. So, gentlemen, it's your time. I've been talking, giving a little insight to who you are. But now I really want to get into, Ryan and Matt. Ryan, first I'm going to start with Matt for this reason.
Merry Christmas.
I've given a big intro on you, brother. A lot of people know a little more about our relationship. Matt, we're finally meeting here, my man, but we've
It's
known
true.
about each other.
It's true.
Where you from, brother?
I'm from Bakersfield, unfortunately.
Why unfortunately? That's interesting.
It's like in the middle of nowhere, and I don't know. It's got terrible air. I think, they had like a new kind of report that came out about how bad the air was, and I think Bakersfield is like pretty up there as far as like America in general is concerned. It's pretty bad.
That's interesting because as I take the headphones off for everybody watching me, I'll keep the headphones on and off just to make sure everything's EQ'd beautifully. But it makes it a lot more organic for me to just take them off. So thank you for that, guys. I don't want to keep them on the whole time. Why Bakersfield? What's up with the air pollution, brother? Like, what's out there?
Well, it's kind of like sandwiched in there at the bottom of the San Joaquin Valley, so I think all the bad air kind of just accumulates there. Plus, they got a lot of cows.
Yeah.
Oil fields, too, Oildale.
Did you ever see that documentary, oh, goodness gracious. It was about the idea of having it was about the meat industry. And it was about the idea that the production of meat through the establishment of these areas where they could mass produce cows and the cow flagellants would contribute.
Like the methane. And
Yeah. They made so many points. And oh my goodness gracious, I forget the name of this, but I've watched this about 2 years ago. But is that one of the issues?
I would imagine so.
Oh, interesting, man. That's interesting, brother.
I guess it's kind of interesting. I mean, I left as soon as I could. I just stayed gone. I ended up going to UC Santa Barbara because, like, that's where everybody ended up, like, going on vacation. So I figured, 4 years vacation, do some work.
When did you get to Santa Barbara from Bakersfield?
It was like 2003.
So a while back.
Yeah.
A while back, brother. So high school days over in Bakersfield.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up there?
It was awful. I mean, it was kind of like, it's like, if you've ever read the book The Outsiders.
S.C. Hinton, one of my favorites.
It was basically like that. It was like a town stuck in the 60s. Like if you look out along the school parking lot, you'd see all these like Mustangs and Chevelles and stuff. It was really weird. I didn't think it was weird until I left and then came back.
Were there? What was the culture of the kids like over there by you? Were they nice? Were they like cool?
It was East Bakersfield, so like pretty much every city that has East in it, that's like the bad part of town.
Oh wow, okay, right on. Wow,
East Bakersfield,
Wow, right on.
Bakersfield is kind of a weird place. I mean, there's literally a high school for all the cardinal directions, and then South High, for the longest time, was the South High Rebels, and they had a Confederate flag. Wow. And my dad went there, and he has a Letterman's jacket, literally with a Confederate flag on it.
Wow, wow. So that was that's what's so fascinating. America in 2018 is looking a lot different than what we were seeing, in 1980. And I say that because by the 80s, you had a push of a zeitgeist, that spirit that said, we have to start to think about those who may be less fortunate, and you have a lot of programs that start popping up, and you get to areas that may be hit hard socioeconomically, some of the east sides that you mentioned, Matt, and you say to yourself, well, why is that? Why do we have to have any disparity in this country, a country that has so much wealth, so voluminous with talent? Why do we have such thing as East Sides? You know what I'm saying?
I found myself, feeling kind of lucky that I was going to East Bakersfield High School, and right across the street was Kern Medical Center, the hospital, and right next to it, Juvenile Hall.
Interesting.
It was like, everything's right in one place.
Wow.
You spend your childhood in that.
Yeah, it's like right in the, golden circle.
The golden circle, man. Well, I say that because it looks a lot different from the 1950s to 2018. Living in a segregated country. Could we fathom that? Could we fathom the fact that if you are white, you have this access to not just mobility socioeconomically on a more predominant scale, but you also have this ability to use a bathroom other than somebody of color that to me is an atrocity of humanity. But and I say that, because Matt, being from Bakersfield, brother, you have seen a bit of what it's like to live in the Southern California area. And that's inland a bit, in the desert area.
Yeah.
It's
hot, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I was gonna ask you, brother. And Ryan, I'm coming to you on these in a second, brother. But Matty, man, like, dude, do you think that ties into? Do you think climate, geolocation ties into the way people act?
I kind of think so. If you were to really get into like the, geospatial ArcGIS type programming for like, seeing which schools are located where and what is the socioeconomic status of those areas, you'd see some interesting things. You could see like a lot of lower income places nearer to like freeways, and like the rich areas are more closely related to like the beach area and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting stuff.
On top of the hill.
If you want to, if you wanted to get into that like programming stuff, you could do some regression, find out some stuff if you wanted to.
Yeah. It's why, I think that we look at the world around us right now and say, geez, we just heard, as I mentioned early on in the intro, the conversation that there are certain countries that are shitholes, as it's been quoted for the last couple days. And, Ryan, I'll throw this over to you now, my brother, man. Yes. Now, I want everyone to know that Matt is somebody who is an intellectual who also is in the fields, as I am, in education. And we are working to better communities, and I think just in general, to start to open people to this idea that, hey, listen, we're living in a world where critical thinking is imperative, and where we have to question those that are telling us what to do. We can't just give people a blank check and say, hey, listen, I trust you, I believe in you, because if you're doing that, you got to make sure we know who these people are. And we also have to the right of, to my right, to Matt's left, yes, a veteran, an intellectual, a gentleman who has been a hero to our country, somebody who I've had the privilege of working with for months for the last semester at a university in the Central Coast, Ryan Sparks. Welcome, fine sir.
It's finally nice to be here. It's nice to finally be here.
Pleasure, brother. Well, Ryan and I have been talking about this for months, and due to just a matter of what I think is always ethical in terms of doing work-related stuff and then doing more extracurricular business fun stuff, I think there's always a time and a place. So I told Rye, I said, Rye, brother, in about 3 months, we're going to get you on, the show. And when you had blew my mind with a podcast you did with Matt, that's when I said, we need you guys with us. So Ryan, fine sir, thank you for being here, kiddo.
It's good to finally be here. Finally go beyond from what we talked about. A lot of plans, a lot of talking, a lot of ideas, a lot of conversations. And so now to finally be a part of that, and hopefully in the future be a pretty significant part of the network. It's fascinating.
And you've been traveling. And first off, I echo that being an integral part of this network, both you and Matt. First off, not to go too fast beyond that point you made, sir. But I just want to say you've been doing some traveling too, fine, sir. You just got back from Texas, haven't you?
Yeah. So
and before you go there, I apologize. I just totally stole that mic. Let the audience know where you're from, my brother.
I'm from Salinas. I was born in Watsonville, and in my crawling days I was in Watsonville, and then raised in Salinas for my whole life. Graduated Salinas High School in 2007, and then joined the Army because why not? It was a lot different then. A lot different then.
What year did you join the Army, brother?
2007. So I graduated June of 2007, or May, and then left in July. Or graduated June and July. Left about a month later after graduating. And so I had a lot of stuff lined up in my life at the time. I was a nightclub DJ at 15 to 18 years old. I had this privilege and this ability to work with my dad and working at one of the last nightclubs in Monterey. And so I had a lot going for me. And I kind of looked at my life one day and said, when I get older, I want to look back and know that I was a part of something bigger, that I did something beyond me, beyond the city, beyond the county. I just want to look back at something and say, I was a part of that.
Yes.
And I wasn't too patriotic at the time. Like a lot of kids at the time, I would half say the Pledge of Allegiance, unfortunately, just due to laziness. It didn't affect me. I was a kid, etc. And it wasn't until after I joined the Army, joined the military, and then served and did the time and kind of came back and throughout those years that I really realized what it meant to serve, what it meant to be a veteran, what the country and the principles of the country really stand for, and traveling the country beyond just Salinas, beyond just the little world that I was involved in, and to really see different environments, different neighborhoods, different people, different cultures, different ways of life was just, it started bringing up a lot of ideas. It started making me kind of realize quite a bit more. And so I did 6 years in the Army.
Where were you stationed, my brother?
I was stationed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
And don't mind me right now. I'm going to actually throw a couple things up on social media just to let people know. Remind us that we're live right now as I'm listening to you.
So I did some training in Georgia. I did my infantry and airborne school training in Georgia. I was there for 7 months or so.
Fort Benning,
Georgia.
Shout out to Mickey Grand, who also went through Fort Benning. That's a friend of mine down in Florida right now. So we're going to talk about him in a moment. Let me pop this up just to make sure everybody's linking in right now.
And so after that, I went to the 82nd Airborne Division as an infantry paratrooper. And so was with them for a few years. I actually spent more time deployed out of that unit than I did actually stateside, which is funny in hindsight. And so after that, I left and was part of NTC, which is down in Fort Irwin, California, in Mojave Desert, where units go through to train for about a month before they deploy. So we were part of this training force that would go and be an opposing force. There's people who would train them properly, different classes, et cetera, et cetera.
And as I'm putting this in, and I'm just sort of want to make sure that we got a couple people linking in. So everybody linking in, thank you. You're listening to Ryan Sparks right now, veteran, and Matt Gutierrez, educator from Central Coast of California right now. But I want you to realize this. What Ryan has done to create this reality that he has is something that's a shift in what he was doing. 18 years old happens in your life.
Yeah.
What makes you say, I want to go into the military in 2007, brother? Because right there, we're in the height of everything happening in Afghanistan and Iraq.
You know, at the time, growing up, typical boy, action movies, war movies, army men, and a bunch of Legos everywhere, build battle scenes, whatnot. 2001 happens, I was in 7th grade, and it affected me, but it didn't at the same time. It wasn't a direct effect. So just like we look at things that happen across the state, across the nation, across countries, if it's not directly affecting people, it kind of goes in one ear out the other because there's no direct effect.
Yes.
And so I was I was more or less the same. I felt it. I was in 7th grade, so I couldn't fully comprehend it, but there was no direct effect to me to really enforce something. Yes. And so 2003 happens and the invasion happens. And I remember going through our newspaper articles, I actually still have at my dad's house, clipping the articles of the pushes and of pictures and what was happening. And it still, at the time, wasn't a reality to me. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. I mean, everybody, or a lot of kids growing up, want to be a part of that action, a part of that war movie. And it still wasn't really there because I knew that, it looked cool, but there's always the reality of it, that it's not like that way. And so 2007 comes around, and actually a recruiter called me and said, hey, I found your interest card thing. And I'm thinking, I never filled out an interest card. My name. Because I had a lot, it wasn't a part of me. Like, I didn't seek out a recruiter. I didn't. Yeah. It wasn't something that I pushed for. It wasn't even an idea that I had. And so he calls me, and I couldn't say no. I was like, yeah, I'll sit down. Worst case scenario, I just tell him, no, thank you. And so I joined, and I was part of the surge. So you had the initial invasion in 2003, and you have the surge in 2007. Wow. And at the time, and I think we've discussed this before.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I joined.
We've talked a lot about which now it's our time to give it to the audience.
Oh, yeah.
And that, I'm coming right to you in a second, sir. Trust me. What I'm trying to do right now, ladies and gentlemen, as you're seeing, is I'm trying to make sure that I have enough management of time for both Matt and for Ryan. Because you both got to hear what these gentlemen got in their minds, because I'm telling you, it gets deep. We're going there right now.
It's nice to build that foundation about who we are and how we've kind of come to the perspectives and the life that we have, because everybody's lived their own different life. Everybody has a unique experience one way or another. So that's what makes everybody unique, is that they all have their own micro narrative. They've all lived their life from birth on. Yeah, I used the word. Look at that.
I'm throwing it out to Maddie on that one.
We're going postmodernism here, right? Yeah, Ryan's using the micro narrative of it. You got it, dude. We're moving away from macro narratives. We're breaking it down.
We're getting there. We're getting into the micros. And then we're going to go to the nanos.
Yeah.
We're going to the nano narrative next, which would probably be something metaphysical, maybe. Maybe something about where we come from beyond the basic breakdown of what reality is.
That would be consciousness. I think if you did it, that would be consciousness. You're taking my mic.
True. That's true.
I'm sorting this mic out, dude.
Thank you guys for helping sort that out, boys.
He's talking about a ayahuasca trip. Go ahead. Tell us about your DMT time.
And everybody listening in, you got to realize that essentially when you think about consciousness, you're thinking about a state of reality that we are aware of. Consciousness within a dog, within our little doggy, our little baby. Mm-hmm. Conscious. But the human has this incredible ability to think not only into the past, but to think into the future and create something based on what they see up in their mind. What we're seeing in this reality that allows us to be, either free or trapped. And Matt, we'll do this to Maddie for a second. Matt, brother, what do you think, man? Got into consciousness. Ryan sort of, I sort of became a catalyst, and then Ryan took us there full blown. So we're going. What is consciousness, man? From your perspective, brother. What
Well,
is
I
this
think
thing,
that,
my man?
I think that when we think about societies back in the old days, we're thinking about like the Catholic Church being this huge part of everyone's life, and then everyone's living that macro or large narrative. And then as we go closer and closer to modern times and contemporary times, it kind of splits up, and everyone kind of gets their piece of it. So everyone gets to believe whatever they want to believe, and you get those micro narratives. But I think right now with social media, we might be getting dangerously close to everyone getting into a solipsistic kind of, like my way of viewing the world is the only thing that really matters, and people are getting too into themselves. And I think that's why, people feel comfortable just saying, hey, that's a shithole country.
You're great point, brother. That's interesting, Matty, because, Rye, to you, my brother, if I could bring this to you for a second. When you think about that idea that, we get splintered over time, social media has the power to either bring us together or to make us maybe dumb down, to bring us into this altered reality that has no impact on our actual physical reality, because there's an illusion people can live in the virtual world, and that virtual world won't help them in this classical world, in the world that we're living in. So what do you think, brother, man? Social media, yay or nay, man, from your perspective? Or a little of both, because I'm obviously like you, man. Like which I understand. It could be used in good in both ways. But what's your take on that?
Right, it's good in both. I wrote a paper a few years ago on and it's one of those common topics. Is social media positive or negative? It's a typical English class topic because you can argue both ways.
Yes.
And so I think if used correctly, it's very beneficial. So what I use it a lot for is to maintain contact with a lot of people that I have served with. And it's just a lot easier to kind of see what's happening. So you have people that you used to live with or train with or work and hang out with and do all this other stuff. And then even family, even extended family.
Totally.
You get to see a lot more as opposed to just taking a phone call and then having to dedicate 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, because when you're on the phone, you can only do so much when you're on the phone.
The visual is pretty incredible, with social media. The fact that we could do Skype, we could do FaceTime, you could put a picture up on Facebook, on Instagram, and family could see that. Facebook more so, you could do the private family stuff.
Yeah, and you can show your whole family and your friends, to whatever extent you sit, how much is going on in your life, or your job, your family, etc.
Yes.
And of course, you still reach out to people that you're close to and talk and hang out with, etc. But it's easier to reach out to everybody else.
What about kids nowadays? What about kids? Is it too crazy for them? Is it too intense for them to understand that? Like, to understand what we know? Like, to say, hey, listen, you're obviously we have nieces that are 7, 8, and they're very savvy with social media. Is it something that
I think my 8-year-old son, who doesn't even use social media, but I think he's more savvy with YouTube than most of the older people that I see on a regular basis. And it's that how much he uses it, and it can be looked at the same thing both ways. Every generation looks back at the prior generation, or looks at the younger generation, and says that's wrong. That's the devil. Elvis, his music, that's the devil.
Beatles burned the albums.
Exactly.
Igor Stravinsky, 1904, 1914, impressionistic writer, composer. And they rioted in the streets of Paris. He made a piece called "The Rite of Spring," and in that there was the first section of it, or the second section, was called "Sacrifice of the Virgins." And this is in Paris. This is early 1900s. People are not ready for that. 100 years later, now look at it. Now you have Naked and Afraid, all these shows where it's people are not even wearing clothes, and it's mainstream media.
And art is the same. Art, music is an art, but you have music as a category. You have art, physical art as a category. And every generation looks at the next one and says, that's wrong. We don't want that. We don't like that. That's evil. But it's that next generation. It's how it's used. So we might look at it as just the negative of it because what we're used to growing up and what we're used to in using it. So when Facebook first comes out, shortly after MySpace and all this other stuff, a lot of people use them as platforms to meet new people.
I remember MySpace. Oh my gosh.
Right, to connect with other people and meet others. It can start going downhill the way we see it, but there's nothing to say that 10 years from now the direction it went might seem downhill to us, but where it eventually evolves into could be beneficial. Now, there's still a lot of negatives attached to it, but people looking for people with similar interests. Before, if you were into Dungeons and Dragons, Pokemon, whatever,
Sure.
something that might not have been mainstream, and you might have been looked down on in school or separate if in school. Now you can go on Facebook. You can join a group. You can find other people with those similar interests so that you're no longer alone.
Feeling alone and feeling isolated, which right now, going over to Maddie now, is arguably one of the biggest concerns, I think, for humans, feeling isolated through social media. And I want to ask you this, Maddie, man, sort of like extrapolating to this idea, brother. Thinking about ancient Egypt. Let's go there for a second. Thinking about those ancient time periods. Just for 1 second. Maybe two. Okay, maybe we'll go 3 or 4. Okay. Wisdom, knowledge, let's say. Knowledge that they may have had. What we're seeing right now with social media, what do you think, Matt, the world plausibly could have looked like 12,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago? Even going back to 3,000 years ago, to what modern Egyptologists would say is when much of what ancient Egypt and what was created then. But obviously, when we read Graham Hancock, we see a bigger picture to this.
Yeah, I think what Graham Hancock says something like 11,000 years ago, there was like some sort of mass terrible thing that happened, and I don't know. Yeah. And then somewhere around there is where he says all these pyramids came from. I think people are saying, and I'm speaking out of my depth here, but I think that the Orthodox Egyptologists kind of suggest that it's 5,000 years ago, something like that. So it's like there's some discrepancy in what people think might have happened. So I think I have no idea what really Egypt looked like 11,000 years ago. That's a little bit out of my depth. I know what Graham Hancock says, and I'm not really sure about that.
What do you think? What do you think about this idea? About what the world looked like, but what about the idea of knowledge that
imagine
may have been
being
lost?
500 feet up in the air on top of a pyramid with stones that weighed two tons plus, and you're just kind of thinking wow, it's very difficult for us to do that now. How did that happen before, we had iPads and iPods and whatnot? I'm not really sure that's, I don't know, there's something missing there. There's something not explained. I don't know.
And I'm over here fixing everybody the iPad. I just tried getting different angles, so don't mind me right now. Sorry, gentlemen.
But getting back to that concept of, kids being savvy with technology, I'm not so sure. I mean, as a teacher, I see kids making all sorts of mistakes on social media. I mean, they may like it more, they may use it more, but I don't think they're, particularly good with it. Yeah,
and savvy, when I was making the point with my niece, she knows about this stuff. There's things I wouldn't understand. I wouldn't think I would have understood at her level. You know what I'm saying? Or at any child's level. How to just navigate through Facebook, through YouTube, as we mentioned. That to me is interesting, and it makes me think about what's happening to the human brain. Are we being rewired, evolving, and is this something that's part of the process of where we are supposed to be going?
I don't know if we're ever supposed to be headed anywhere. I mean, evolution's kind of just like you're headed in the direction that best suits your environment. I don't think there's any predetermined this is the Kwisatz Haderach of human beings. I think that's from Dune. That's a Frank Herbert reference.
And we're going to the 1980s with Dune references, and yeah. Dune was a great movie from years back.
David Lynch didn't think so.
That's right.
Your kids use Google Drive. Right, and so whether or not to what extent they may or may not have issues with, when I was at that grade, it was nothing very even similar to that, and then now you have the cloud-based thing, the cloud that's created. You can't touch, but it's there. So you got that, and so the collective consciousness. You have that idea. Now kids are already looking into there being. I mean, at each desk, and this is, in not such a rich school, that all these kids have their own computers linked into Google Drive that they can do all their work on, that they use. And I saw that when I got to speak at your class. So,
and I think education.
That's my counter to your.
And I think this too. I think, and going back to great points, brother. And Matt's point, well taken too. I mean, working with this generation, you see it, brother. You're a master of this, and you're 100% accurate. You're right. That's why it's like the understanding of the technological savvy, I guess, just by knowing how to utilize gadgets. That's sort of like where I was going, but to understand the ethical ground, the moral ground, the limitations, the negative effects, the wrongs that can happen with social media. That's where the wrongs happen.
Well, thinking about the collective conscious or unconscious or what, if you were to listen, and this is at the risk of sounding like the old person in the room, I think if you were to take a quick listen to the collective conscious of this generation, I feel like you might hear snoring a lot of the time. I mean, like, it's a lot of reference culture, and the reference that they're making, the thing that they're referring to, they don't know about. They haven't taken the time to get acquainted with it, because ultimately, Google has made it such that you can know quite a bit of stuff and not really have any wisdom about anything.
Ooh, that's a good point. So putting the actual work into the research process actually gives you a navigation. It lets you say, hey, listen, I have to know about this author. It's not just taking a source. For instance, we've had have you guys ever seen the documentary Loose Change?
I have not.
This is a documentary about everything that a lot of questions regarding September 11th. It was a very big movie, like in 2004, 2005. One of the creators we have had on, one of the producers of that movie is Alex Jones. Okay, so you hear a lot of information that may be misinformation. Not to say that there's information that's misinformation in that movie, but to say that when people hear a bit of what you hear Donald Trump say with the country being some certain countries being a shithole, and then you hear him make the point that he gets a lot of information from InfoWars, as he makes the point. It says, well, okay, as I made that point earlier, somewhere in the middle is the truth. You know what I'm saying? And I think that all media networks fall victim to sensationalism. And a lot of that has to do with wanting to gain people's revenues. And I think that's what happens to people. They lose the ethical sensibility. And it's something that I think is difficult, because Alex Jones and we've had Jason on, Jason Burmis. And Jason, we've had him on twice, 3 times. I've had him in college classrooms. He's a brilliant dude. Guy debates editors of Popular Mechanics. One he did on Democracy Now!, which was super killer. And we've talked about it. And that's why when I make the point, I make that point about information, we have to realize that every network is going to have a bias, whether it's InfoWars, whether it's Fox, whether it's MSNBC, whether it's CNN. So I want you to know that if you see Loose Change, it's actually, it was just held up by Trevor Noah in the new Jon Stewart's
Daily Show.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. And Matt, this was probably 2 months ago. And I just did a piece with many of my students on this regarding spin in media. And we did a piece on citizens journalism with Burmis. And it was crazy, man, because you hear how, there are so many different views on certain topics that make you say, what is the truth? Where is the reality that we live in? Because no matter what, whether it's, watching Fox, watching InfoWars, watching MSNBC, every one of the people watching that have a responsibility to not let themselves get too entangled in the thought process of I think what money can do to certain ideas. And I think that's something that happened, guys. When you think about, well, first off, I mentioned that idea of misinformation and what America has dealt with, the last, couple months perhaps, with a lot of misinformation going out there.
Can I do some active listening here?
Yes, please.
Okay, so just to let me just throw back at what I'm hearing. So you're saying like when money becomes a part of the equation, people start feeling more comfortable saying whatever it is that their listeners want to hear, and they get the most views for.
I think, and not everybody, because there are some people who have great integrity, tremendous journalists out there, and independent journalists who don't do the wrong things, but there are some that will sensationalize certain things.
So they're trying to not really enlighten people. They're just trying to contribute to an echo chamber effect, basically. I think Is that what you're saying?
I think so, brother. Yes. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about that, Matty? Do you think that is accurate? Do you think that sort of, or is it flawed? Like,
I'll take that after you.
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, I think that a lot of the very, very, successful pundits on, like Fox News and MSNBC, they, if you look at their backgrounds, a lot of them have like Ivy League educations, and based on who their listenership is, they kind of like start talking as though they've never seen a violin, they've never been to Stanford, Oxford, where
man.
They're like, I don't even know where these people are coming from. You even know, and it's like, come on, you that's not you. You're playing down to your audience because that's what you think. That's what you think they want to hear.
When you hear Trump make those remarks, and then with all of awry, but for you, Matty, do you think that this is him playing to his constituents, or is this what he feels? And I know that's obviously speculation. So everybody listening in, first off, don't do drugs. We don't want you to do drugs. Don't do anything that's going to hurt you. That's the first little preface I want to make, or middle fist, I should say, as well. Know that everything that you're hearing is all perspectives. Hence the subjective perspectives. And you all have your perspectives listening in. And we want to hear from you. Please send us your message. I'm going to check the messages on social media in a second here just to see who's linking in, and if you have anybody sent us any text or messages via Instagram or Facebook. But we want you all to realize that what you're hearing is a matter of perspective. We don't want you to take this to be the end-all be-all of truth. Just know that this is something that you can build your thought process off of, and we could all share in this idea. What do you think, brother? Would somebody that makes that kind of comment, especially at that level, is he playing to his constituents, or does he really think that? Because a lot of people are saying, he's racist. A lot of people are saying from The View to Don Lemon on, to many people. Not everybody. I shouldn't say everybody at all.
Okay.
But
well, the shithole comment, I don't think he probably knew that he was going to be quoted if he said that at all. But I think that a lot of the things that he says on Twitter are going directly to his followers. So he definitely has to be talking to somebody. I mean, I don't know if he's in charge of that Twitter, but, sometimes he says some stuff on there. And I don't think it's geared towards, people like me. I think it's going to, his base. I think that's who he's talking to. So, of course, he's speaking to somebody. He's speaking to his base.
Matt, thank you, brother. Right, who is his base, man? And take us to the aspect of media as well, because I know you want to go there too, brother. I apologize. I'm going to check out a couple tweets just to see, because I was running a little tweet contest.
So the thing with media, so you guys covered media as a whole really well, and so to kind of go off that, Facebook as a platform is everywhere. So with the false information and incorrect information, trying to find that truth. Every year, there's always, not even every year, it seems like every day, every month, there's always something going around that's being shared. Hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, that share these things. Head and Shoulders, they came out with this fake article, and it wasn't Head and Shoulders. It was a fake article that was published, and somebody photoshopped pictures of like worms and cavities and like big holes in their head and don't use Head and Shoulders.
Yes.
Hundreds of thousands, millions of people shared these articles and believe, I'm never going to buy a Head and Shoulders. I'm never. But they never looked into the source. So when it comes down to money, whoever did that, created that article, had advertisements on that website, which of course generate revenue per view. And so that's why they would do that. Now, that's one in the main idea of it being money and then trying to find the truth. And you realize it was just somebody who created this, and then it got shared. They made a whole bunch of money, and it was all 100% false. Then you have other people saying, oh, so-and-so passed away. This pop star, this actor, actress, whatever. And those go around, it seems like once every year. And then you got to go to, you look it up, fact check that, go to other websites that review that stuff. But it's so common that people share these things and believe it right away just off of the name of an article without looking at the actual website and what the credibility.
And right, man, that's what I think is probably one of the biggest downfalls right now is the fact that we have so many different media outlets. It's hard for a young person to say, this is what truth is.
Right.
What do we do, man? Like, and before we go there, what do you think about the whole idea of the shithole country remark? Is it coming from your perspective, what he feels, or is this playing to his base? Which then we have to question, who is his base? And that's a very big question. That's a very vast, amount of people. It's hard to say. You can't say one demographic.
Well,
yes,
he
there's.
Allegedly said it. He allegedly said it.
Good point.
And on top of that, it was a closed meeting, so I don't really think that he was definitely trying to make a statement to his base or someone, because otherwise he would have tweeted it, right?
Yeah,
So-
you're right. 100%. It was one of those side remarks. Just made I think you had said right. He didn't think he was going to be quoted, or maybe Matt, that was you had said it. He didn't think he was going to be quoted, but this is the reality that he finds himself in, because now people are questioning, does he really feel like that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's something that you say on the side. Is that something that our president embodies, which makes it now even more questionable that it's something that's on the side, because you would say, oh my gosh, something on the side, you'd probably want to say, oh man, hopefully I can help those people. Hopefully, what I'm saying, rather than, hey, I get those people. I wouldn't even paraphrase it. Everybody, just Google it.
So the biggest,
it's good, Matty, good point, brother.
to look at it not so much in defense, but like we talked about, it's all speculation, it's all point of views.
Yes,
and nobody knows the 100% belief, story, ideology other than Trump himself, right? So the biggest thing is, and I tell a lot of people, it's like when you're out writing a paper. When you're writing an English paper, a debated paper, you don't put I think, I feel, because it's your paper.
That's right.
And so what I always tell people, when you argue with somebody,
it's got to be objective, the objective perspective.
right? And
Can't
so,
be subjective.
Well,
yes.
when you argue with somebody, family member, significant other, friend, random other person, you're saying, this is how I feel, this is how it is. You're saying, I don't care what you say, that sun is purple, because that's what your argument base is. And so when you argue with somebody else, a lot of things are said, and thus are arguments. And unfortunately, and that's just how people argue.
Yes,
They get upset. They get not so much emotional, but they believe in something, whether they're right or wrong, whether the argument's justified or not, and things can be said.
Yes.
Some things may be very minor. Some things can end relationships and friendships. Doesn't matter how much that person might believe it. It might just be said out of anger or out of a passion, that feeling. Or it could just be you just get caught up and you say things that you really don't mean, and you even look back at it, at arguments that you might have had with somebody and be like, man, I was a dumbass. Why would I don't believe that at all. Why would I even say something like that? But you get so caught up in trying to prove a point that things can be said.
Yes.
And so, it's one of those things you take it into context. Some things he says that it's just kind of like, okay, you're a little way out there, and other things you start taking, oh well, he called it this. That just might be his point of view. However, the way we see that word and the way he sees that word and the way we see those countries or he sees those countries might be completely different. He might actually have more of a better interest in them. says that in a way that people are like, oh, well, you're calling him that. But he might be like, hey, like, we worry about our country, then we can go better him. But we don't know what the intent. Nobody knows his actual intentions are other than him.
And right, as a veteran, brother, you're somebody that has literally put your life on the line. Something that I, Matt, have told Ryan, I am a wimp compared to all what you would do, brother. And I just gotta say, man, like, not to beat myself down, not too much of a wimp. I am getting older though, and I am losing my stamina and my strength, whatever I did have back then. But what do you think, man? Like, for veterans right now, is this a positive? What you're seeing from this administration, whether it's Trump or whoever is now taking the lead, from the veteran standpoint, how are the veterans feeling about what's happening right now? And I know that's going to be diverse, obviously.
A lot of us don't. Politics is one of those things where sometimes you talk about it, sometimes you don't. It's when you serve, regardless of the reason you serve or the reason you joined, it very quickly becomes less about politics and your political view or your view of the country or your view of the world or whatever. And you actually start serving for the people to your left and right. You start staying there and serving because the people you're with. Just like being an educator, you educate and you do it for the students. That's right. Doesn't matter what your
And that should be the way it goes, right, Matt? As we know, there could be people who may not have the best interest of the student at heart, and that happens. I've seen that many of times, and I have stories.
Human nature, right? And
I've seen greats, such as Matt Gutierrez.
What makes a teacher in having that as a career is that it doesn't matter, and of course there's always going to be one or two here and there, but it doesn't matter what they believe politically or what they believe in other things. Their job is to teach students a particular subject or subjects. And that's their role. It becomes, and the longer they do that, and actually when done correctly, the longer they do that, the more they realize, like, hey, like, these are the minds that my job is to mold, to educate, to teach this particular subject.
That's right, man.
Same thing with the military.
That's why I always had a great time going into that dang classroom with you, brother. Just making sure all the cameras are good. It was good. I had a blast, man. Matt, imagine, man. Now we start to know each other. Imagine me and him across from each other, and like 60 other like awesome people, and we're just breaking it down. Didn't even cut you off, man. But I love that stuff.
And that's what makes good educators is the ones that do their job. And so it's the same thing with the military. Of course, you're gonna have people who have strong political beliefs, depending on where they were raised, how they were raised, where they're from, etc. But it quickly becomes less about the overall mission or what our view on politics is or what our view is with everything else, because it doesn't matter. My voice as an independent person or as a veteran or as a father or a husband doesn't make a huge difference where I'm at right now in the bigger scheme of things. So I worry about my local level, the people that I served with,
which is where the change happens, which is where it has to happen. Because I think from the top down, it's too voluminous. There's too much. But I think if people realize that from your local governments, from your local veterans affairs halls, from people that make those connections, that's where you make those changes in communities. And from a veteran and an educator, guys, and right, and you just in Texas, brother. Mm-hmm. You spoke with a lot of people, man, but I think even more so, what, just for the audience, what was it, man, that you were doing in Texas in actuality?
So there's an organization that was started a few years ago, Student Veterans of America.
And then, Maddie, I'm coming back to you, brother, so get ready. Thank you. See, I've had two mics. See, everybody listening in, we're getting the Subjective Perspective show is going to be acquiring a nice new big setup mixer that's going to give us a lot more channels and more microphones. So next time, boys, my boys, we should have two mics, so then you can just sort of go in and out. So thank you for being super awesome. Appreciate that.
That'd be great. I don't want to share a mic with Matt longer than I have.
Oh, hey. This mic's starting to smell like booze, Ryan. What's going on?
So the Student Veterans of America
it's all water.
Is a bunch of it's water. If that that wasn't water, I would already be somewhere. Started getting the student population across the nation together and start kind of bringing them together. And so that's this huge, long story. That's their history. What we did is part of our school is we got involved with them last year or about 2 years ago, and then last year. So they had their national convention in Texas this about a week ago, and it was so nice to be around a bunch of people, a lot of them, most of them veterans, and a handful of faculty advisors, the counselors or certifying officials, or people involved in the education system that have a direct line with the veterans.
Anyone you want to shout out right now?
Oh, all kinds of people.
Too many to talk about right now, but if you know Ryan Sparks, you're getting a shout out. You know Matt Gutierrez, you're getting a shout out right now.
I'll tell you what.
I'm throwing a big one out for y'all.
If you're listening to this and I don't say your name, then you can come yell at me and then be like, hey, at least I know you listened to it. There we go.
That's right.
That's how I know who listened to it. That's how I know. It's so nice being around like-minded people, veterans of all ages, from all across the country who wanted to better their local veteran club or veteran organization at their college
And
level.
you were the head of the Legion, right, brother?
I work at this local American Legion. I'm the office manager, post manager. So I do a lot of the bookkeeping and accounting and numbers. And here I am going to school years ago. I hate numbers. I hate math. I'm never going to use all this. And then now I do math for a living.
Right on. You got to count your millions coming in, baby. Come on. It's coming.
So
we got millions in love, y'all. That's what it's about. Trust
Yeah.
me. And the dongs are right around the corner.
knowledge is invaluable. But it's nice being around people that share millions of ideas that are rolling in. But that's what we did in Texas. It was a few days of classes and seminars and presentations.
That's sick.
Everything between how to better connect with veterans, how to better connect with women veterans, all the way up to getting your voice from your college up to Capitol Hill, and how to pass legislation, and how the veteran voice can affect changes from the local level all the way to the upper level. So I actually have a few people on my Facebook that I added, or a lot of business cards, and a lot of people I was able to talk to who shared that vision of the mission. People who helped push across the Forever GI Bill were there. People who pushed policies.
GI Bill is indefinite. GI Bill. People get that.
So it had a...
Or will it run out?
a
Because
statute
wasn't
of
there like...
limitations.
Yeah, that's what I was...
So you had to use it within a certain amount of time, and then it would expire. You still have only a set amount of time you can use it. Like, there's a certain amount of years you can use it. But I think it was 10 or 15 years you had to use after your exiting of the military. And so a lot of people would lose that because 10 years would go by and they left, and they said, hey, I want to go back to school. And they would have lost that as a thing.
Exactly.
So that was what was signed in.
So now it's all good. You can go
now
whenever.
It's indefinite.
Oh, that's rad.
So you still have a certain amount of time that they'll pay for school, but you have indefinite to use it.
Right. Let me for a moment, brother, throw this out to Matt now. Matty, brother, for the reason, because this gets me into the bigger picture. And guys, I'm looking at my time. Ladies and gentlemen, we usually run 1 hour, long show, like interview convos. The reason we're going to keep this at roughly a little over an hour is for the video aspect. We have our video cameras going, and the capability right now is giving us a little over an hour. So we're a little over that hour right now, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to get us into a couple ideas that I had for Matt that I was very interested in as well. So from the Veterans Affairs and from what we have to remember about our veterans, we cannot forget about those who have wore that uniform, who have put their life on the line. Whether it's our Army, our Marines, our Navy, our Seabees, right? Anybody, could be any branch of the military. Not to leave anybody out, but we also got to remember our educators. And Matt, man, you've put yourself in the institution of education, which right now it seems like it could be an arduous, difficult time.
Yeah, thanks, Betsy DeVos. It's real good. It's real good.
Yeah,
You're
right
doing
on,
a
man.
fantastic job. Hope you get rid of that whole Pell Grant thing. I hope that goes well for you.
Is that really what they're trying to do? Get rid of the Pell? Are they doing that, Matty? They want to do that?
Well, you hear rumblings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I used for my schooling. Pell. that's one of the most important ones.
Yeah, I'm in this thing called Public Service Repayment Program. And
Oh,
she's
you're in
all
that,
like-
man?
Yeah. She's
Oh,
like,
dude.
oh, by the way, that's one of the things we're looking to get rid of.
No, bro, that gives you like within 10 years.
Yeah, I know.
You're able to be relinquished of a majority of that, if not all of it.
it's like
the
it's
loans.
like putting a nice little cap on the whole indentured servitude of, student loans. That's the laugh of a person who knows my pain.
Yeah, I know the pain. I got the mortgage on my life. Right, guys? It's a mortgage on your life.
The student loans are like so awful. It's like
They don't go away in
yeah,
bankruptcy.
You can't. The only way you can get rid of them is if you're dead.
Yeah.
So here I am talking about the benefits of the GI Bill, and I'm using it. I got education. I haven't spent $1 in college, and then here
That
you
is
guys are.
first off, I'm very happy for this gentleman right here. But you got to realize you put your time in, you deserve that.
Oh yeah, no, but it's just funny that the perceptions of it. We would always joke around and say how much are you in debt? That's what the house costs
and
right
I think this, my boys too. I think Matt. I think it could be said that, and I say it from my end. Even with the debt incurred, it gives me the opportunity to follow my dreams, with what I want to do. So for everybody listening in, I don't want you to be pushed away, from getting student loans. Get your loans, do what you got to do. Because in the end, you're going to find yourself, because I know you are a rock star out there listening in, and you're going to find yourself a great gig, and you're not going to stop till you find a great gig. Look, Miss Lisa TSP and I come from New York City, Long Island, and we traveled 3,400 miles, and, all the way to a place where it was a calling in a way. We love this. We can't even tell you guys.
Yeah, the journey is long. The journey is long, and your dreams will, they'll change in unexpected ways. You think, you're going to be a writer, and then you're like, maybe I want to be a teacher. And then, it kind of changes from there to like.
Were you writing? Was that you?
I do want to do some writing, and I have done. But,
What kind of stuff, brother? What kind of stuff?
Nonsense.
Nonsense. Well, I mean, like I'm writing about, what it's like to be a millennial, and perspectives on millennials and that kind of thing. It's kind of interesting.
Philosophical type pieces?
Yeah, I mean, fictional kind of slice of life kind of stuff.
Like not narrative stories, but more like...
It could be narrative stories too. I kind of do a little bit of both.
Okay, yeah. So basically intertwining, fusing, social reality, what's going on. Hunter S. Thompson?
Yeah. A little bit of gonzo, yeah.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, man. Okay, I can use the term. You understand this. Just make sure my cameras are rolling. I talked about gonzo journalism with you, and I won't mention on air one of our colleagues' name from last semester, if you remember, from after class. And I was talking about gonzo journalism with Hunter S. We had on the show Dave Amram, Matt and Rye. Dave was the pallbearer to Hunter S. Thompson's funeral, one of the pallbearers. He was one of Jack Kerouac. He was the original musician with Jack Kerouac in the coffee houses. Now, everybody listening in, if you don't know what gonzo journalism is, it's the idea that you put yourself in a story, right? So you're talking about something, but you intertwine yourself also in that story. So there could be a car accident outside. Yeah, you're a journalist. You're going to go talk about that. But then you create a story, essentially. You become part of the story.
It's kind of like an ethnography mixed with, journalism. So you're... as you measure something, the measuring of something actually changes it, and that becomes part of the story, right?
Yes, and I think that's why you being a writer, brother, man. Okay, first off, what are you going to be doing with it now in the future? Like
nothing, because my dream changed. I wanted to be an educator, and then all of a sudden, like I was saying, your dream changes from there to like my dream right now is to die not in debt. So again, Betsy DeVos, if you're listening, we've got dreams out here.
Dreams. We're building
still have
dreams, baby.
dreams.
We got dreams that are blossoming right now. I just don't want to be in debt. That's my dream. You got to realize that this is where that's what we are doing now.
Dream big, kids.
Dream big. I think we have a opportunity, or I think we definitely could do some comedy, boys. I think we can get ourselves in some comedy. I did not ever know that. I never say that about myself, but I have some terrible.
Follow your dreams. Dreams change.
Exactly. I think it's just good vibes right now too. Even though I think we have some really good humor, I think it's really just great connections. And my guys, as I'm looking at my time, we're at about 10 minutes after the hour. What I'd like to do is wrap up with one more song. and then bring out with an outro with you guys. Okay, guys? Cool. So stick with us. And everybody listening in, we do have the families of Ryan here as well as Matt here. So if the kids would like to come in and say hi, please. If the ladies would like to come in and say hi, please let them come in and be on camera if they'd like to. Okay. So we'll ask them during the commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, they're going to pop on a song, guys. Yeah, I'm actually going to pop on a song, which I was going to go Ragtown Boys, but I'm going to go a different way. I'm going to take us to Jules Shear, creator of MTV Unplugged. I was going to play a song by Lisa and I, which is a great song, and maybe everybody, you all know that song. It's called Ragtown Boys. And guys, if you haven't heard it, well, yeah, we'll be jamming it for you. Okay, so it's a great song. I wrote it actually when I was 19. I wrote the rhyme. And when I was 22, I wrote the guitar piece. And I was like, oh, let me put it together, try to rhyme with the guitar. And it came together. And we've played it all over the place, from Sunset Boulevard to Sullivan Hall in New York City. And it's a song that is just a basic rhythm, sort of like Jack Johnson-ish, but with a little rhyme. And I grew up, guys, rhyming, believe it or not. Should I rhyme really quick? I'm going to rhyme for you guys. I'm going to rhyme for you guys. Everybody listening in, I'm going to rhyme. I got to sip my drink first. All right, guys. I wrote this when I was 19. And this is just this is what I was seeing in the media back in 1996. And it's timeless. All right, here we go, everybody. So you're going to be able to see me a little bit, and you'll hear me. And hopefully our video cameras stay rocking. We're looking good, everybody. This is episode 126 of the Subjective Perspective Show, featuring my boys Matt Gutierrez and Ryan Sparks. Thank you, gentlemen. Bakersfield, Salinas, and the Hizzy getting dizzy. New York City getting with it. Here we go. Do you believe in tranquility? Is my charm in your heart? Moses had a seat apart. An Italian man feel my point like a dart. Smell my presence like your car. The world's making progress, but the question's how far. A country built on promises, just like Columbus's cruise. But history never raved about betrayal. Now you think a seance can save you. In the next world, truth is critical. A man and I see you for gunshot wounds. It's pitiful. I'm just trying to explain how to make a feels when in this world everything is based on individuals. A group is much less needed. This is why I see our destiny in peril bleeding. And I'll keep it there for now.
How come you don't write me songs, Matt? Next show, you're writing me a song.
Yeah, next time you got to put out first.
Everyone's writing rhymes next time. We're rhyming next time, man. So listen, I'll put on Jules Shear while I still have some video left, my guys. So when I edit this later on, when you get this in post-production, it'll be smooth and cohesive. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our brothers out here, Matt Gutierrez, Ryan Sparks. We are freaking excited right now to have the boys in. Gonna go Jules Shear, ladies and gentlemen. You heard Jules a couple weeks with us on the Thanksgiving special. He's the co-creator of MTV Unplugged. Wrote songs for people like Cyndi Lauper. Who else, honey? Who are the big names? He's throwing out there the Eagles, Joe Walsh. He's doing stuff with. There was another artist. Cindy, he did stuff with Cyndi Lauper, and he wrote songs for Cyndi Lauper. Some big songs, some of the big ones. He wrote the songs for her. But there was another artist. Well, not to take too much time up, ladies and gentlemen, this is Omar Lena. This is 3 minutes and 9 seconds. You don't got to spend a dime on.
Now you finally found the spot and pressed it till it hurts. Now you finally be the one to fill it in with words. You've always been so happy to steal all by yourself, just to hope you're never like some shameless someone else. Oh, Marlena, one more drink of paradise. Oh, Marlena, one more drink of all your lies. Your teeth make a mark, it's just like daylight from the sun. Without the quest of the answer or even the question on your tongue. One piece of howling music gonna set your whole world free. Moving around our heads like a lasso, and it only strangles me. Oh, Marlena, one more drink of paradise. Oh, Marlena, one more drink of all your lies. Oh, Marlena. You're in bed, but you're not sleepy. Now your fate's begun. Luckily, behind my lips, there's room for you to come. Oh, Marlena, one more drink of paradise. Oh, Marlena, one more drink of all your lies. Oh, Marlena, one more drink of paradise. Oh, Marlena, one more drink of all your lies.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our friend Jules Shear, and that is our great friend Dean. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the family right here. This is Ryan Sparks' family. This is his wife Stephanie, his little one Dean, and his other little one Joseph.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yo, Joseph, man, how you feeling?
Good.
How does it feel to be in a music studio? Or I should say, a podcast studio.
Well, really great.
That's cool. Just thinking about it. Well, question is this, Joseph. How old are you, sir?
8.
Now, 8 years old. That puts you in about, gosh, I'm a little bad with this, second grade-ish?
Yes.
Is it second grade? Oh, my gosh, I remember that. Goodness gracious. How's second grade going, kiddo?
Good.
Hey, listen, my question is this. What do you want to be when you get older?
A YouTuber.
Oh, well, listen, you are in the perfect spot for that. And I want you to know this, Joseph. As I made this point to Mom earlier and to Stina, who is Matt's other half in life, his life force, thank you for letting us rent your dad for a little bit, okay? We had to borrow the family. Now, over to Stina, just want to say, and to Stephanie, hey, ladies, and this goes up a little bit, so maybe you could sort of move it up so you don't have to... I apologize. Stina and Stephanie, thank you, ladies. And now, if you talk, if you could just sort of push a little into it, put your face a little closer to it, it'll catch a little better. I'm sorry. And notice, as you can see yourself on this is all going to be edited in post-production, so you will be on air. And I want to give a big shout. Okay, let's give some shout-outs now. Now it's time for shout-outs. So that's my camera, guys. So there's a camera facing me from the iPhone. Shout out to, who are we going to shout out? Shout out to Bud and Roach Entertainment. Those are our original networkers that we got to work with for years in Brooklyn. Shout out to everybody listening in from across America, from Rhode Island to Oregon. Sergi Nicholas, I'm throwing you a shout out. World champion streetboarder, good friend of ours. Stina, you have a band.
Yeah,
Can we shout the band out, ma'am?
sure.
IOI. We're looking forward to having you on with us down the road.
Definitely.
And we have a lot of time, okay? This is the first of many experiences we're going to have and a lot of good times, you know? I was telling the gentleman, maybe once a month we can come into the studio and just do this. You know what I'm saying? This is how we roll. You know, we keep it very, we're old-fashioned in a way where we enjoy just a good old-fashioned, honest, good time. You know, I think connecting with people, creating, that's the stuff that gets us going. And it's all about being happy in life. So Joseph and Dean, remember, it's all about being happy, you little guys. Joseph, you're not a little guy. You're getting bigger, kid. I know, buddy. Your little bro's the little one. You guys are all big. 8 years old are too big. Well, I wanted the family to be in here because, first off, if it's not for the people who support Matt and Ryan, we wouldn't have that opportunity to see everybody and to connect these ideas. Just as Felisa TSP, being the individual who supports my life. We are so grateful. Stina, I want to just say, for IOI, when you guys come on the show, we would love if you guys would want to do a little performance, live performance.
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
That'd be rad. That'd be rad. So now check this. Giving a shout out to Normal Bean, George Walker. So now these guys are merry pranksters. Okay, from the electric Kool-Aid acid test. George, I believe George was in the book. There's the original guy, and he had the bus. I think it was Further. Was it Further? Well, they just made a new bus called Farther, and they're going to bring it down here. And they're going to be parked in our studio, and you guys are going to come, and we're going to have a blast with them. Does that sound good? And we're probably going to do a performance in Monterey at the East Village Coffee House. We're working on that. If you know the East Village. Love the East Village. We've performed there a couple times. Awesome sound.
We played there a couple times.
Oh, have you really? Right on. So when they come in, probably like April-ish, March-ish, you already know. You're going to know way beforehand, okay? And we would love for you guys to be here. And when we perform, I would love for IOI to perform.
Absolutely.
So are you guys all located here in this area?
Mostly in Salinas now. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, okay. Showtime. We got a band to support now. That's how we do it. I'm psyched. Stephanie, just want to say this. I've heard, you don't even know, I've got to know Ryan for months.
They're all good.
First off, what an amazing family you have.
Thank you.
What a beautiful family you have, ma'am. I mentioned that earlier, but I just want to say, not only, and even on social media, you see the nice things you put out with one another. It makes us feel so good. And you see just good people. And I just want to say, Steph, for what you're doing in life, being not only a support to your man, but to be a mother, an incredible mother. That's what we need more of.
Thank you.
Well, how's life going, sister?
It's going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Work home.
Yeah. What's the future? The future. What do you guys have plans? What are you guys going to be doing? What do you guys want to be doing like in 10 years from now? Where do you?
Not in debt?
Yeah, we were just talking about this. Matt and I were just talking about this.
Yes. Everything
Well,
paid off. Peaceful.
yeah, you know what? And everybody listening in, this is what it's all about. It's all about the family. It's all about the people that you love and the people that are there for you. So just remember, everybody, you have the power to make changes not only in your life, but in the lives of people around you. Here at the Subjective Perspective Show, we like to make the point that you have the ability to control your reality. And by looking at all of these incredible individuals here in our studio, we couldn't be any more honored to have the families of Ryan Sparks and Matt Gutierrez in with us. And I just want to thank you all for sharing your time. I know it's been a while. It's Saturday evening, and you have a lot to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to round the show off right now with everybody in studio. Let's do one of these. Hey, Joseph, man, can we do like a peace sign to the thing in a second? So what we'll do is just give a little peace out in a moment. And I'm going to throw on the outro. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 126 of the Subjective Perspective Show here in Santa Cruz, California, getting dizzy and feeling the love here in Santa Cruz, California. We'll be back next week, ladies and gentlemen, with two guests, Greg Sipes. I think you could see him on a bunch of shows from Ben 10 to, he's a voice actor. And an incredible musician who's going to be calling in from either Hawaii or Thailand. I'm not sure where the message, the last message was, but Rachel Caddison. Stay linked, everybody, but most importantly, remember, everything that Matt Gutierrez had to make the points of today and what Ryan Sparks made the points of this evening, these are all ideas which are a matter of perspective. And this is why we believe that you all are not only manifestors of a reality that's going to change the world, but everybody you see here in this room are change agents. And that's why, for us, this is what keeps inspiring us. For 5 years, ladies and gentlemen, 5 years we've been on here. And this is why we do it. The connections, the new friendships, the incredible futures, the visions.
Some would say that a night like this is a good decision.
Yeah, we're going to leave it with that, and you're going to know where that's going in the future, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you go into your weekend a bit more thoughtful with the Subjective Perspective. Peace.
What are you looking
objective perspective.